all the way down full speed, and then the next thing all I heard was like 9, 10 gunshots.
I need an ambulance right here. Right here. The guy T-boned.
We got multiple casualties. This is a mass casualty situation here.
And thanks for joining us this Faith Nation Wednesday, just one day after the New York City's deadliest terrorist attack since 9/11.
Well, that's right, Jenna. And you just heard sounds from the scene of the attack. 29-year-old man drove a truck onto a popular bike path, hitting pedestrians, crashing into a school bus carrying kids. You know all about it now.
Yeah, 8 people died, at least 11 injured. The man behind the attack claiming it was for ISIS.
Well, that's right. And folks, as always, we are joined here by Amber C. Strong in the Social C. Also, we have our national security correspondent, Erik Rosales, here to break down the situation. Hello,
Glad
Erik.
to be
Good
here.
to see you. We're going to get to you in a moment. But first, Amber,
yes.
hello.
Thank you, David. Thank you, guys. Of course, I'll be here on Facebook connecting with you guys, reading your comments. So make sure you're commenting below if you have questions for Erik, and we'll try to get them read over the air.
All right. Well, what do you got? Tell us, what have you learned about the suspect?
Well, I tell you what, 29-year-old Sayfullo Saipov came to the United States in 2010. He actually came from Uzbekistan through a diversity visa program. Now, this program allowed up to 50,000 people each year to be able to come to the United States. It's a program that's supposed to kind of bring more countries that wouldn't see Americans over here to the United States. But I tell you what, it's actually using it as a funnel for ISIS and being able to come into this country and do these terrorist attacks like we're seeing.
Yeah. Erik, what do we know about Uzbekistan?
Well, Uzbekistan, not too many people have heard of Uzbekistan. Right. You know, as we know, it borders Afghanistan, but it has IMU organization. That's the Islamic Movement of Uzbekistan. It was an organization that began in the 1990s. That was backed by ISIS in 2015. And even the United Nations has said that many of the Al-Qaeda's top leaders belong to this organization and actually help the people and put out the propaganda to try and get people to become part of ISIS.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Erik, sometimes, after these tragedies, we hear that the suspect were on watch lists, like these FBI watch lists. Was that the case here?
That was the case here again.
And how are these people slipping through the cracks every time? Yeah.
Well, I did talk with many of my FBI sources, and they just tell me that it has to do with money. It just has to do with not having enough people out there, not having enough resources to be able to follow these people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to be able to find out exactly what they're doing. They're on these watch lists, and they are, in fact, watching them as much as they can, but let's face it, you can't have an agent just sitting there watching these people who are on these lists 24 hours a day.
And now we have to wonder about this extreme vetting. The president comes out and tweets about extreme vetting, but what in the world? I mean, the White House is going to have to clarify that.
Right. The White House is going to have to clarify that. We've already put in a request to both the White House and Homeland Security. Homeland Security says we're referring all questions about the extreme vetting to the White House. The White House still hasn't come out with an answer on exactly what the extreme vetting is going to be, because as we know, President Trump came out with the ban. The immigration ban, and that's already being challenged in federal court. So we have to see what exactly the extreme vetting details are going to be.
All right, Erik Rosales, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Erik.
Well, speaking of the president, Ben Kennedy is there live and with the latest on this.
Ben.
Well, good afternoon, David and Jenna. First, let's talk about the president's response. He was quick to act, tweeting prayers for the victims and praise for the first responders, and then really turned his attention on social media towards security, which Erik Rosales was just touching on. Trump tweeted early this morning that the terrorists came into our country through what is called the Diversity Visa Lottery Program, a Chuck Schumer beauty. I want merit-based. Now, also on Twitter, Trump called this attacker a sick and a deranged person. That was followed by an official White House response saying that they fully support the New York Police Department as well as the FBI as they continue their investigation. David, Jenna?
Ben, I want to ask, any word from the White House on the next steps, obviously, following the attack?
Well, we've been hearing a lot from Trump on Twitter, but as for an official statement, I hope to hear more at the 2:30 press briefing, which I'll be at in a little less than 2 hours. But President Trump did tweet to Homeland Security that he wants them to step up their vetting program into exactly who is being let into this country. Exactly how that will play out, we'll just have to, quite frankly, wait and see over the next coming days. David, Jenna?
All right, Ben Kennedy, live at the White House. Thank you so much, Ben. Of course, CBN News will continue to follow this story, and you can keep up with us on cbnnews.com for the very latest, and also right here on our Facebook page.
Right. All right, Amber Strong, what do you got? Anybody reacting there?
Yeah, you guys are definitely reacting and have been reacting since we broke this news yesterday. So please keep commenting and let us know some of your thoughts. I think the overall sense for most of the people is prayer, and they're weighing in saying that we need to pray.
Yeah.
We got this comment here from Christina, who said, "Condolences to those who lost loved ones, I assume. Continued prayers." And then this one is from Andrew, who said, "I'm from the UK, and I send my prayers and condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones." You know, when I hear someone from the UK say this, immediately I think they're familiar with this. You think about the attacks in Nice and the attacks just most recently in London.
If it's so many.
Yeah,
so
when
many.
it comes to the use of trucks to carry out some of these attacks. So definitely understanding kind of what New Yorkers are going through right now. So.
Right. It's not very often, like we said, that this comes to the United States. Of course, this is the deadliest attack on New York since 9/11. So it's a bit of a shock, really, when it happens here on the homeland.
Well, and this is going to be the new, I mean, this is it. I mean, you know, like you've been saying, we saw it in London, we've seen it in other places, and now it's just, you wonder why this hasn't happened earlier, honestly. I mean, it's so easy, straight up. I mean, soft targets. I mean, you can just do what you need to do and yell whatever they're yelling, Allah Akbar, and just start taking off down the street. It can happen all the time. So I'm not quite sure how you police this necessarily. I think it's extremely difficult.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the resilience of New Yorkers. We talked about this. They lived through 9/11.
Yeah.
Good point.
And one of the first things that de Blasio said is go out tonight. And that's what you saw in New Yorkers. You saw hundreds of them taking to the streets and going to their Halloween celebrations and pushing through like, you're not going to scare us, you're not going to deter us. We're going to keep going because we're New Yorkers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That fighting spirit, I love it.
So keep commenting below and let us know about your thoughts. We have a question for you, though.
For us?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've seen quite a bit from the president in his first year in office. We've seen a lot of tragedies like this one. We've seen the situation that happened in Las Vegas. We've seen the situation with several hurricanes, and the president has had his team of advisors, if you will. So our question for you, the viewer, is if you had 10 minutes with President Trump, what would you say to him? How would you advise him? When we come back, TV star Phil Robertson tells the message he had for Donald Trump when he had a few minutes to talk to him. We'll be right back.
What does he say?
Israel and the Middle East, center of the world for thousands of years, and still creating headlines that reach back to the Bible. Hosted by award-winning correspondent Chris Mitchell, Jerusalem Dateline brings a Christian perspective to events that literally change history. Whether it's the front lines or underground, Jerusalem Dateline is your window to Israel, Jerusalem, and the Middle East. Contact us at the address on your screen.
All right, folks. Well, political correctness is a phrase you hear a lot in America today. I think we hear it quite a bit. And if you ask, it's actually too much for a guy named Phil Robertson.
Yeah, many of you have probably heard of him. He and his family shot to fame with their hit show Duck Dynasty, and they were not shy about their faith or their values. Phil, he is outspoken, in fact, as you know, about his values, and he's taken a lot of criticism for not being PC enough.
That's right. Well, we sat down with Robertson to talk, both of us actually sat down with him about the backlash that he's faced for never backing down from his beliefs, and also about his new TV show where he's free to, well, let's just say, share his opinions. Political correctness really has run amok in this country. What do you attribute all of this to exactly? What's going on here in America?
What's going on is when you do not think it worthwhile, I'm quoting Romans 1:28, when you don't think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, when you don't major in biblical correctness, you don't follow the advice of your founding fathers. John Adams, the Constitution was written for a religious and moral people. It is wholly inadequate for any other. These constitutional republics won't work. If you get rid of biblical correctness, you get rid of God, well, there goes your biblical correctness. We're trying to get people to see political correctness, all it is, once you get rid of God, you have to fill it with something. Therefore, we're trying to say, stay with God. Love him and love your neighbor. We'd be better off if you don't murder each other and you don't steal from each other. You don't lie to one another. Come on.
Well, you know, so many people, they agree with you. You have so many fans, obviously. And they, I think, really appreciate when you quote scripture, especially. Some would say, though, maybe you could say things a little differently or a little more delicately. What do you say to them?
That reminds me of something I saw yesterday. I followed on the Stuart Barney business show. I happened to follow by chance Joel Osteen. And Joel told me, he said, Phil, we say the same thing. He said, but I say it just a little more nicely. And I said, Joel, cut to the chase, son. Tell them to turn or burn. I've yet to find someone who has come up with a better story than the biblical one. 2017 years ago, God becomes flesh, Jesus. I've investigated him. I love him. I'm looking at the person, I'm thinking, I've never read about anyone like that. He dies on a cross to remove Phil Robertson's sin. The money won't do it, the fame won't, but he did. And 3 days later, he says, Phil, immortality, I'll give it to you if you want it. I'm like, I'm in. First time I heard that, I was 28. I was a heathen. I got high, I got drunk, got laid. I heard about Jesus. I said, whew, there's more to that than I thought it was. How in the world did I ever miss that? I said, life and immortality, peace of mind, delivered from Satan, delivered from my sin, freed from guilt, freed from law, having to be perfect. None of us are. And freed from the grave itself. I call that a bases loaded, home run, clean sweep. I don't care what anyone says. So I love them, and through this show, hopefully we can say, come on, folks, come on here. Let's go back to what the founders had envisioned, you know. Let's, statesmen, dear sir, may speculate for liberty, one of the founders said, but it is religion and morality that offer the supports for freedom. You have to have it. So therefore, we're trying to remind America of that. So I go to and fro with good news.
Very nice. We're in D.C. I got to ask you a political question. You've taken slings and arrows. There's a guy named Donald Trump that's taken a few slings and arrows himself. What's the assessment so far? What's the grade, if you will?
I think he has done remarkably well for his own party not to back him like they should, and the obstructionist Democratic Party who is trying to stall him at every turn. I've looked at his achievements so far. Supreme Court Justice, I'm like, there's one that'll say, no, do not murder means do not murder. So I feel pretty good about Mr. Trump. I think by the time the smoke clears in the next 4 years, I think a lot more people will come to the realization that he really will do a great job. That's what I think. I preached the gospel to him, by the way. You said, did you get the gospel to Donald Trump? Because, as I said, I don't know him. I didn't know him at the time. So someone said, Phil, you got 10 minutes with Donald Trump. I said, 10 minutes. That's all I need. So I go in there, how you doing, Mr. Donald? How you doing? Pretty good. Good to see you. He said, I love your son, Willie. I said, Donald. I reached in my pocket. I had it written in diagram form. I said, whatever happens, don't miss this. And I held up a piece of paper, and diagrams showed that Jesus became flesh 2,000 years ago. I said, he died for Donald Trump's sins. I said, Donald, you do have sin. He said, oh yeah. So I know he was an honest man. And I said, they killed him, put him in a tomb 3 days later, raised from the dead, Trump. I said, hey, immortality. He was like, I said, if you really want to stir him up, film me baptizing you. That'll really get him. He was like, it surprised him. He said, can I have that? I said, sure. So he put it in his coat. I said, good to see you. My job was over. I told him.
Regarding the political climate, what's your message to both parties? You know, first the Democrats, then Republicans.
I love them all. all of them. You got to remember, you say, well, Phil, when you get vitriol and hatred directed towards you for quoting Bible verses, does that bother you? Are you kidding? Look what they did to Jesus. Never made a mistake. God in a human body, never mistake-free. And I see what they did to him. Therefore, I actually am happy when they hate me, or they exclude me, or they insult me, or they reject my name as evil because of the one I'm representing.
Our show is Faith Nation. What is the state of our nation spiritually right now? And I guess my real question to you is, what is the prayer for this nation? What should people really be praying and doing here when it comes to this awakening that we need in this country?
I keep up with the rate of sexually transmitted diseases because it's a barometer. 100 Center for Disease Control as of 2014. You say now, still getting higher. 110 million Americans at any given time have a sexually transmitted, 1 out of 3. So I'm just looking at the stats saying the state of the union it's not a pretty picture. So I think we ought to all join together and just do what's right, for crying out loud, for a while.
Your new show, what can people expect?
This show, Me in the Woods, we won't have like sponsors and all this that can, well, we don't agree because we don't believe in this God thing. So you quote a Bible verse and they're liable to fire you for a few days. You know, they pull that one on me. Yeah. But we're still there. We just point people to God saying, why don't we try loving God and loving each other for a while? Give me a break. So that's basically the show.
Phil Robertson, thank you so much for doing this.
No holds barred with Phil Robertson. Well, for more information about his new show, you can go to crtv.com. And looks interesting. Sounds interesting.
It does. By the way, I'm going to grow a beard, just so you know.
Are you?
Yes, it's going to go, well, honestly, it'll be probably off the desk within 3 months. I grow it pretty quickly.
Did Phil inspire you?
That's a loaded question. Did he inspire me? Well, I tell you what, I like straight shooters. I mean, look, you might not.
I was talking with the beard.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the content. What a
well, both. Sure, with both.
Yeah, he did inspire me. Absolutely. No, I'm gonna do it. The beard for sure.
But did he inspire you in his answers as well?
As well, he did. He sure did. Because I like straight shooters. I like, whether or not you agree with the guy or disagree, I just like, look, he's bringing it strong. Honesty in his world, right? Yeah. Donald Trump, same thing. Honesty in his world. And, I guess that's the key phrase, in his world.
Yeah, and he speaks in absolutes. Like the president, it's black and white, it's wrong, right and wrong. He speaks in absolutes.
That's right. So. But try getting him on the cell phone, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Kind of difficult.
Kind of difficult. You know what? You might be surprised, but he doesn't actually have a cell phone.
Well, or that maybe we shouldn't be surprised.
Maybe we shouldn't be surprised, but he doesn't have a cell phone. He was telling us that.
Yeah, and what's also interesting, he says, the difference. I'm not going to do a Phil Robertson imitation.
Okay, I love this. I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
He says the difference between being poor and being rich. He looks at us. You want to know the difference between being poor and being now rich? He goes, the menu is what he says. The menu. He goes, before we used to kill it and eat it. And now I got the T-bone, I got the filet, I got the bone-in. That's what he said.
Well, I actually used to live in Monroe, West Monroe, where they're from, before I came here to Washington, D.C. for CBN. And Miss Kay, his wife, actually has her own restaurant there.
Well, did you go?
They brought that after I left, so I haven't been.
Oh,
we need to take a trip down there,
Let's do that. Let's get right on that.
Deep South trip. What do you all think? I know there's some of you tuning in from the South, so.
Deep South music. What do you got over there, Amber? You got any Deep South music?
There's a lot of love for Phil Robertson. Okay,
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Okay.
This is from Ann Hilton, who said, "Well, I just love you and your family and miss your show." And we also had questions of people asking, when are you going to do another show? So we did get that answer for you.
Nice.
This one was from Stacy, and it's right in line with what you said. He said, "I love the simplicity of his testimony." And as you kind of went through the comments, a lot of people were saying, yeah, we make Christianity too hard sometimes.
Yeah,
we make the message too hard. So a lot of love for Phil Robertson.
Very nice.
Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, David and I head to Capitol Hill to talk about tax reform with the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows. We'll be right back.
I want it to be God. I want it to be Christ.
Hey there! Make sure you check out my new uplifting Christian entertainment show, Studio 5.
Well, he is one of the most powerful men in Washington. And as the leader of the House Freedom Caucus, Congressman Mark Meadows has the influence to make this tax plan a reality.
Well, that is correct, Jenna. Earlier, we went up to the Hill. We were paid overtime, I believe, for it. At least I was. I don't know about you. And we talked to him about his tax plan and what he thinks also about Steve Bannon's brand of politics and also his faith. Have a look. Good to see you, sir.
It's great to be with you. Thanks so much.
Well, tax reform, I think you've heard about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the talk of the day, and
right.
But it's all about getting it done. Sadly, we've been talking about it for far too long and not actually working on it. And yet here we are within the next few days where not only we'll be debating it, but we'll ultimately be voting on it on the floor. And so I'm optimistic that we'll start to put more of the hardworking American taxpayer dollars back in their pocket, because it's not our money, it's theirs. And I think if more members on Capitol Hill understood that, they would perhaps be a little bit more fiscally sound. The basic framework is one that's good. It's actually very aggressive, very pro-growth, pro-family in terms of the way that it's set down. I think the common negative comments that are made about it are going to be said about any tax reform bill, you know, that it benefits the rich and not the middle income wage earner. For me, I can tell you, I've been in the Oval Office speaking directly with the president on this particular issue, and he's laser focused on making sure that those in the middle income tax brackets get not only a significant reduction, but that's the primary focus. And so regardless of what you may see on the headlines, it's critically important that we deliver for them, and I think we will, hopefully before Christmas.
What is a non-negotiable for you in any tax reform bill?
You know, I don't normally answer these types of questions, but I will for you guys.
Oh, well, thank you. Bless your heart.
You know, I think some of the non-negotiables for me, it really is about being very aggressive on both the corporate and the small business tax rate. If we're just going to give big corporations a break and not the small business guy, that's a non-starter. It's a red line. The other is looking at making sure that we take all of these standard deductions. You know, we said double the standard deduction to make sure that that families get to see a real tax deduction. And so whether you do a double standard deduction or you just lower the rates so that they actually get a benefit, if we see their rates going up, that's a non-starter. The other thing that's actually come into play here recently has been about our 401k plans. Yeah. And my conversations with the White House as well as leadership, we told them that was a line in the sand that we weren't going to cross. And so I think it went from being really not considered to being considered, and now to being not considered again. And so part of the delay in the rollout may be that switch that happened over the last 4 or 5 days that said we're going to leave 401k plans alone. You know, because for most of your viewers, it's all about, you know, that amount of money that they can save up for retirement. And if we start affecting that so that we can pay for a tax cut for big corporations, that's a non-starter, both politically and just from a policy standpoint.
I've got to ask you about the 39.6. You know the figure. It's the top income tax bracket. And boy, for Republicans, this could be a tough pill to swallow. Give me your sense about all of that.
Philosophically, I believe that you lower all the rates, right. And so that's where I am. I can tell you that the 39.6% rate. I'm a representative. The voting card that I have it may have my picture on it, but it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people of North Carolina in my particular case. And so we're very, very attuned to that. And so some of those people have been saying, listen, giving that upper bracket a break, while I'm still having to pay is hard for me to swallow. And so at the end of the day, if they keep a 39.6% rate and they bump it up and say people making over $1 million still have to pay that top rate, that's not a red line. It gets back to your question. It's something that we're willing to look at. Would it be my first choice? No, I think you need to cut them all and bring them all down. But if that gets put back in, it's not going to be a stumbling block for most conservatives, and certainly not for me.
I've got to ask you about the midterm elections. Steve Bannon, he's coming with cannon fire. You know the deal.
I think that he's tapped into something that is critically important, and that is the frustration of the American people. And they're tired of politicians saying one thing and doing another. They're tired of people giving excuses. And quite frankly, I'm a member of Congress that I'm tired of the excuses as well. If we need to send everybody home, including me, let's do it and get it right. And so for Steve Bannon to actually take action in making sure that people, feel the heat. President Reagan used to say, if you can't make them see the light, they need to feel the heat. Well, the Bannon cannon is making them feel the heat, and I certainly applaud that effort. In the big scheme of things, what it does is it makes everybody more accountable. They start to think, well, if I don't do what I said I would do, what I campaigned on, it never hurts to do what you campaigned on and promised the American people. And if you don't do that, then there may be consequences. And I think Steve Bannon and his operation is just highlighting the fact that there are some members that campaign one way and legislate another. And time for that has to come to an end.
And finally, your faith. Very important to you. If we can, what are you studying right now?
I do a daily devotion every morning. One of my favorite actually devotions is really about humility and surrender, humility and complete surrender. And when you do that, when you actually walk in humility, you realize, one, that I don't have the answers. The other is in this city in Washington, D.C., where everybody has larger-than-life personalities. It's real easy to start thinking that you're smarter than you really are, or that you're more powerful than you really are. And ultimately, for me, I realized that this is a calling. It's a calling on my life. It's not one that was ever on my bucket list. I never really wanted to run for Congress. And yet, when you do that, there are certain sacrifices that you make. And sometimes I start to feel sorry for myself. We're having to do this or we're having to do that. And then I start to think about the heroes of the faith and the sacrifices they made going back, thousands and thousands of years, or the sacrifices that our military men and women make each and every day. And what I get to face pales in comparison to the sacrifices they've made. And so for me, on those down days, it's really about realizing that walking in humility, surrendering everything to my Heavenly Father, who ultimately is the one who directs what I do, hopefully each and every day. And then lastly, I think the big part of that is realizing that the credit for any victories are not mine. They belong to the God that I serve. And so that's who I am.
Forget about the powerful Mark Meadows. It's Mark from North Carolina.
That's right. It's walking in humility, and hopefully one of those that really appreciates the fact that our God still reigns over the affairs of nations.
Congressman, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's good to be with you both.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Mark from North Carolina.
I knew you were going to say that. I wanted to say that line.
Very down to earth.
Can I say it?
Go ahead.
Mark from North Carolina joining us on Faith Nation this week.
He's so down to earth. Really, really down to earth.
He's great.
In our interview, we talked about a lot, but we had to kind of cut it down for this. But we talked about Robert Mueller and the special counsel investigation that's happening on Russia. And what he had to say about it was that it's such a wide scope. It's sort of like looking for something without there actually being a charge.
Right.
And he said it needed to wrap up quickly.
Yeah, and I remember you asking him specifically, is this a political witch hunt, which is what Donald Trump has called it, and Meadows didn't want to go that far, only because he says he doesn't normally use the words political witch hunt. And I'm like, oh, that's right. We reserved that for Donald Trump. Sorry, my bad.
Right.
Anyhow, but Meadows is a straight shooter, great guy, and we really had a fun time. I really think talking. Did I say time?
Time.
A fun time talking to him.
We really had a fun time talking to him.
It's my New York.
Capitol Hill. That was terrible.
Is that New York? Or, oh, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. It ain't Gunnison.
It ain't Gunnison. It's not Gunnison, Colorado.
No, that's not how they roll. All right. So what else? New York obviously is the big story. Obviously.
New York's the big story. And actually, did you see this? President Trump tweeting that he is going to start to terminate the diversity lottery program.
Well, that's going to be, start Googling those words for sure. We're going to bring Amber C. Strong back in here. And also, I understand he was also asked by reporters about whether or not you'd maybe send this guy to Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay. And he said, yeah, absolutely, we're going to consider that. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I think New York is definitely, obviously, the topic of the day tomorrow, the next, hopefully, few weeks, because it's an important topic. Someone mentioned that here in the comments and said, thank you, CBN, for not making this a 24-hour news cycle. Stay on this. Stay on such an important topic. We got a lot of great comments from you guys. This one, we love this one. This is coming from New York City Yellow Cab, who says they are listening. It's car number 84. So
that's awesome.
Just to let you know, we're listening. We hear you. We're praying for you. We're New York Strong here at CBN News. We're praying for you guys always.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great.
Got another one that I thought was really interesting. This is from someone in Pakistan who said, praying for America, blessings from Pakistan's Christians. So people all over the world who are feeling this and touched by this as well, commenting, praying in.
That's great. By the way, can I just say one last thing before we wrap up on New York? I knew when I saw that happen in New York yesterday, and it happens with every terrorist situation where they typically yell Allah Akbar, right? God is great. You knew that was coming, and indeed, that's exactly what happened yesterday. And I think it's important for people to understand that when he's saying God is great, this is a false God he's talking about. Jesus is the truth. Allah Akbar and all of that, this has nothing to do with Jesus. Obviously, this has nothing to do with Christianity, clearly. But the point is that this whole God is great. We've got to be careful when we start saying God. What is God? So anyhow, I just wanted to say that because we got to pray for him. And we got to pray for people, obviously, that don't know the truth, which is all about Jesus.
Yeah, and you had a tweet about that. Actually, this guy, he needs Jesus.
He needs Jesus. And, let's, okay, we can go the condemnation route, but how about we go, the pray for his soul route? I mean, I'll go with that route every single time.
I like that route.
Do you like that route?
What about you? I like that route.
Okay. Very nice.
All right. Well, Amber, anything else?
Just more prayers. More prayers for New York City, and that's what you guys are doing, and that's what you can be sure we'll continue to do as well.
Very nice.
Thanks, Amber.
All right, well, that does it.
Yeah, that does it for us this week on Faith Nation. Now, make sure you tune in next week. Ben Kennedy has a sit-down interview with Fox and Friends host Brian Kilmeade. Did I say his name right?
I think it's just Kilmeade. Like, kill me now. No, just kidding. Did I really say that?
Brian Kilmeade.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. I'm not doing an interview with Ben Kennedy. He's asked me multiple times. I won't do it.
Yeah. Hard to get.
I'm a tough get.
Yeah.
I'm a tough get. You, on the other hand, I feel like you would sit down with Ben.
I'd sit down with Ben. Hey, Ben, if you want to interview me, I'm available.
Well, on that note, Ben, work on that. See you, folks.
Take care.